And we are live. Welcome, welcome Tish, and welcome everyone else that I've missed. So we've got 3 minutes to go. And we are in Spitalfield. Who am I? Well, I'm an 18th century taxpayer. That's what I am. I know, I've let it grow. Hi, Cynthia. Extensions? No, it's a wig. I'll tell you why in a moment. Thank you, Val. Hi, Trish. Welcome. So we've got 2 minutes to go. So if any of you were watching on replay, you could skip the first 2 minutes if you wanted to. I'm waiting until it's officially time to go. Glamorous, oh. And I've got my hat as well, my top hat. Well, my hair is actually quite curly when it's very sensitive to the humidity, so it does get a bit curly. Wig party, yeah. That suits me. Nice. I don't know how long I'll be able to support it because it gets in your face. And we've got 1 minute to go. Can anyone guess where I am? Can anyone recognize the background already? I am gonna get a bit of a few funny looks, but who cares? I'm shameless anyway. So we've got 1 minute to go, 1 minute before it's officially time to start. You hardly ever wear it down. Cut it then. There's no need to have it long if you never wear it down. And it's officially time to go. So welcome guys, welcome to this first Monopoly tour on YouTube. As some of you might know, I've done a lot of those on a different platform, and I've restarted the board. So for anyone that's new to me or new to those Monopoly tours, let me explain. In those little tours, I literally roll the dice at home on the London Monopoly board. And then wherever I end up on the board, I'm taking you there for a live virtual tour of the area where we look at property prices. Today, it's a bit of a random one. I ended up on income tax. I could have just paid the tax and rolled the dice again, but no, I've decided to do a tour about taxes. I did have that income tax before, and I took you to a Somerset House that used to be the tax office. But I wanted to do something different this time, so I've decided to take you to Spitalfield. You might wonder why. What is the link between Spitalfield and taxes? Well, before to have income tax, we had other taxes. We had to find a way to establish people's wealth. Because income taxes were actually a bit taboo. And there were many very random taxes in the 18th century. Hats, wigs, and you could even be taxed for that one, a dice. That was called the dice duty. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the taxes in a moment, but for now, I'll just show you a statue, because we've been here before, some of you might remember, and I was a bit annoyed that there was a lovely statue that was on the other side. Let me show you, because they were doing some work. So this is from Gillian Mark. So this is Rabbit Woman and Dog Men. They are from the artists. They're from Australia, and they've done a lot all over the globe. And in a few moments, we'll see some elephants as well. The orphan elephants. They are from the same artist. Anyway, you love the sidecar, yes, so do I. Here is our first elephant, and we'll see quite a few today. So, to tell you a bit more about income tax, Well, the first one was in 1798, really, at the time of William Pitt the Younger. But that did not go down well. People hated the income tax. And then they, well, actually, they tried again later on, but they did not want to call it income tax because it was such a taboo. They called it, well, it was quite a long name. They called it contribution from the profit arising from property, profession, trade, and office. All of that to make sure they didn't say income tax. But before to have income tax, they had to find ways to figure out people's amount of wealth. And the most, the most common or the most famous of those weird taxes, it's actually the window tax. Because they didn't know how much money people had, they were trying to establish it with whatever they were doing or buying. So that's how we ended up with some very random taxes in the 18th centuries. And that's what we'll talk about today. So more elephants, more elephants. They are all based on actual orphan elephants. And while we're here, you might be able to see behind me a little bit of a ruin. This is part of the priory of St. Mary's Hospital. This was the site of a medieval hospital. They found those remains when they extended the Spitalfield market. Spitalfield, it's named after a hospital. It was well, a priory that would take care of the sick, and it was the Hospital of St. Mary. Orphan elephants, yeah, well, sadly, you know, they are, that often happens. Anyway, let's go towards the back streets that are very, very Georgian, very beautiful. Spitalfield is a very trendy area, and I am proud to tell you that I found some of the most expensive flat shares that I ever found since doing those Monopoly tours. So for the ones that don't know those Monopoly tours, I'm going to ask you to guess the prices of those flats or accommodation that I've found. Today I've not been too shocked by the prices of the properties to buy. It's actually pretty much what I expected, but some of the flat shares, I was shocked. But before we start looking at properties, I'd like to tell you a bit more about the history of this area. We had a few different waves of immigration that really shaped Spitalfield. And the first one was actually the Huguenots, the French Protestants. They were fleeing persecution in France. In France, the Protestants were kind of persecuted. Then you had the Edict of Nantes that gave them the liberty to worship as they wished. And then there was a massacre, the Saint Barthélemy massacre. And a lot of the French Protestants, they moved away. A lot of them moved to England, and a lot of them moved to London, and they settled here. Very often those Huguenots, they'll be in the weaving industry. If you looked at the building straight ahead, that's quite typical of the Huguenot architecture. They often had a little top floor, like a different structure with windows, because they were trying to get as much light as they possibly could to do the silk weaving and to know exactly which color they were using and all that. And there's one particular building here that's fascinating. It is Denis Seward House. Denis Seward, he was an American. He was an artist, and he moved to London in the 60s, and he bought this property here. £18,000, would you believe? At the time, property was really cheap in this area of London. This is one of those old gas lamps. Isn't that cool? And he moved in. He actually lived here. He was a tour guide. He actually used to do tours on horseback, well, on a horse carriage in Kensington. And he decided to make his home a piece of art. He decided to have it almost like a museum, like the home of a family, a fictional, multi-generational family called the Jervis or Gervais in French. It's been Anglicanized. So that's a fictional Huguenot family that would have moved here from 1724 till the 1920s. Denis Sewer sadly passed away in 1999, AIDS, sadly, and he was really worried that his work would disappear. But no, the Spitafield Trust, they've bought it, and it is still today a lovely little. Well, it's called 4D. It's like a museum, but we call it 4D because you have the visual, you have the smells, as well as the sound. And if you're looking for something unusual to do when you come to London, it's quite cool. Anyway, we have right in front of us some example of the window tax. So you'd have to remember that in the 18th century, windows were very expensive. Glass was a very expensive material. When you went to buy a bottle of wine, you'd bring your own bottle because the bottle was much more expensive than the wine itself. So having a lot of windows was a sign of wealth. Very often people had a lot of windows on the facade, but hardly any at the back because they wanted to impress the neighbors, you know, they wanted to show off. And that's how they've decided to tax the windows. If you had more than 10 windows on your building, you'd pay such amount, and if you had more than 20, you'd pay such amount. And well, nobody likes to pay taxes, right? So people started to block up their windows to avoid paying taxes. So we can see some more blocked up windows there. It was sadly actually quite dangerous because when those homes were built in Georgian time, they were built as a family home. But very quickly with the Industrial Revolution, hundreds and thousands of people moved into the city, and those big houses, they were divided into little accommodation, and very often the poor lived all together in a tiny flat in there, and sometimes they had no windows because of the window tax, and that was terrible for epidemics. Anyway, in this very building we have a 2-bedroom flat to buy. How much would you spend for a 2-bedroom flat in that very building here? How much would you say? Let me show you a photo of the inside. It's looking quite stylish. It might not be super bright because Trish is asking, would they unblock the windows again? Well, no, because nowadays those buildings are listed. They're part of the heritage. We are not allowed to change them. 2.2 million, says Linda. Oh, you guys see. Actually, Trish is the closest so far. 2 million, says Tish. No, it's actually lower than that. Let me find the answer. Where is it? 3 millions, 2 millions. Ooh, you guys are quite high. It's a fancy area, but not that fancy. I'll give it a few more seconds for you to guess, because I know with YouTube it's a little bit slower than it was with Hego with the chat. Sam, a bit too high. Let me show you. 850,000. So it's not that bad, not that bad. So yeah, let's go a bit further. I've got one more down there. So yeah, those blocked up windows, very sadly, you know, it was terrible for ventilation. And we know that later on in Victorian times, we had epidemics all the time, but with the Industrial Revolution and the condensation, the urbanization, there were a lot of cholera, typhus, tuberculosis. TB was a disease that was airborne. So people breathing the same air with no ventilation, families were contaminating each other. And very sadly, this window tax killed. And it was not abolished until 1851, I think. Who can afford that? Not many people, Terry, not many people. I mean, I am a 36 years old professional, and I'm pretty sure I will never be able to buy anything in London, and I'm not even able to live on my own. So yeah, that's the prices here. Anyway, this one should be fairly easy. We've got a 2-bedroom in this one here. So same type of accommodation, not as nice. Let me show you. Well, the deco inside doesn't look as nice. Where is it? So how much would you pay for this one? It's easy because it's the same type of accommodation. So 2-bedroom for sale. And if you think this is ridiculous, Terry, wait until the flat shares. Jenny, 500,000, you're not too far off, a little bit more. Yeah, Linda, pretty much. I'll show you just a little bit more. Where is the answer? There you go. Oops. 750. To be fair, it's not too bad. I actually imagined a little more over here. And let's go down Nantes Passage. So see Nantes as the city in Brittany, that is named after the Edict of Nantes because of the Huguenot connections in the area. Well, I don't actually know for sure, but in same thing here. Any garage? No, Nick, no garage. You wish. No. And this is interesting. So straight ahead down there, there's a flat share. So this one is going to be a rental. So I'm going to be looking for a rent monthly for 1 bedroom. So you're living with a stranger. 1 bedroom, I'll show you the photo. The bedroom is quite small. The flat looks lovely. Sorry. There's those little pollens in London at the moment, they get into your throat. Oh, you know what, Val, you're quite spot on. It should go so high. 5,000, Jenny, maybe not that much. But let me show you the answer. So the ad says 1,600 per calendar month. But when you clicked on the ad, it actually read that the rent would be renegotiated with the landlord and it could be up to 2,000. Imagine 2,000 a month for a bedroom, just a bedroom in a flat share, you know. For 2,000, you can actually have a full flat. Maybe not right here, but a bit up north, where we'll finish the tour in Arnold Circus. Actually, you can have a full flat, a 1 bedroom for 2,000. It's not going to be as nice, but yeah. And this is actually the prices, because a bit further down the street there, I found another bedroom in a flat share, 1,400. So yeah, it is interesting prices. To give you an idea for people from abroad, minimum wage for a full-time job in London is 1,750, I believe. So if you spend that type of money in a rent, I mean, there's no way you can eat, you know. So yeah. You'll stay in rural Pennsylvania. Well, yeah, it's probably a good move. Well, at least in terms of accommodation. I mean, London is amazing, and sometimes, you know, it's so expensive. Sometimes I wonder, why do we do it? But you know, we do. So it's probably worth it. Anyway, let me show you the home of an artist here. He was a painter, and I'll show you his most famous piece of art. It is, where is it? There it is. It is called Merry-Go-Around. From the distance, it looks like a lovely, innocent painting, but when you zoom in into their faces, it's actually a depiction of war. So actually quite a hard painting. So the artist is Mark Gertler, and we have in Spitalfield a lot of those little plaques on the floor. They are connected to the local history. They're all different, but you might be able to recognize on this one they've done the little faces. So that's the same faces as you've got on the canvas. Right, so we've got another accommodation just next door. Let me zoom out. So this is a lovely house, 4-bedroom, and there's a few open space as well, like reception rooms. It is for sales. How much would you pay for this lovely house? 4-bedroom. Let me show you the photos. It's rather nice inside. Where are we? I'll find them. Is that the one? Yeah. So, 4-bedroom, and it is to buy. Oh, Trish, much more. Let me show you, I think I've got more. There we go. They have a mini tiny garden at the back. Genevieve, you're really good. I think you're quite spot on. Let me check. Where is the... Yeah. There we go. You guys are getting really good at this. Oh, it's not focusing. So 2,750,000. So it doesn't really surprise me. You know, it's a 4-bedroom. It's quite big and it's a lovely, lovely area. So yeah. Right, let's go. I love that car. That car is always here. And I love the door knockers as well. See that one? It's quite cool. That's cheap. Well, yeah, it's not. Well, I wouldn't say it's cheap, but it's for the area. I don't find it too much. It's probably because the mortgage thing at the moment it's not best. But yeah, peanuts. Yes, exactly. If you, I mean, if you were to increase your tips a little bit, I'll get that one soon. Yeah. Right. Let me show you another door knocker. I love those old door knockers. And here, I think there's an otter. Yes, there it is. That's a bit creepy. We've got a stuffed otter. Well, I think he's an otter. Every time I walk past or I cycle past, I have to take a little look at the otter. I think it's a real one. I think it's a stuffed one, but who knows? Anyway, so we talked about the window tax. Well, we had another tax that was related to buildings. In 1712, we had a tax on wallpaper. Yes, a tax on wallpaper. And wallpaper actually came from Europe. And, well, it's... look at the sets the way they're done here. You can see it starts in the middle and then it goes around and goes around. Those are actually called sets. They're not cobbles. But yeah, so the wallpaper came in. Some say that it came from Europe, but you can argue that they were already painting on paper in China before the year zero. They were already sticking it on the wall. And by the way, this used to be a police station. That's where they dealt with the Jack the Ripper case. So that's today it's flats as well. So the wallpaper came in the 17th century, really. I think the first wallpaper factory in the UK was 1688. It became very popular, but because again that was something for the rich, they thought it was a good idea to tax it. So any stenciled or painted wallpaper was taxed. It was taxed by the square yard. If you did not pay the tax, you would not be hanged, but if you faked a tax stamp, you'd be hanged. So don't mess up with the stamps. And obviously tax evasion has always been a thing. People did not want to pay the taxes, so they tried to find a way around it, because you'd be taxed on a paper that was printed or painted. So people used to buy white paper and then they'll commission an artist to come and do the stencil. Or sometimes it was wooden block, you know, like wooden printing. But yeah, so they did find a way around it. And finally, in the 1860s, the wallpaper tax was abolished. And in the 1800s, wallpaper was actually a silent killer. Would you believe people were being poisoned by their wallpaper, especially the green one? There was a colorant that was actually an arsenical dye. There were arsenic in the wallpaper. And people started to drop dead at home. They had no idea why. Because the symptoms of arsenic poisoning, it's actually quite similar to cholera. You'd have diarrhea, you'd have vomiting, when actually you were just a breath of death at home, you know. They kind of knew because it was already banned in Germany. And there was the case of a baby that died after chewing wallpaper. But the main, you might know William Morris, they still do wallpaper today. He actually made a fortune with an arsenic mine. and they kept doing it. Eventually, Queen Victoria herself, she had some toxic wallpaper in the palace, and she received a foreign a diplomat that slept in the bedroom, and he was poisoned overnight. So that was a bit of a diplomatic issue. And would you believe they actually never made it illegal? People vote with their wallet, you know, so people stopped buying the wallpaper, so the manufacturers had to stop and change the ingredients. But yeah, quite a few people died out of wallpaper poisoning. So, and on top of that, because of the window tax, you know, so not only you were poisoned by the wallpaper, but you might have less windows at home. So yeah. Oh, you know why your mother told you to stop eating the wallpaper? Yes, well, exactly. In this building there, I'm not going to show you the photos because I think it's a bit dodgy. I found two different bedrooms that are 900 a month. So that's fairly cheap for the area, but I suspect it might be council flats. It is. Well, it's not illegal to sublet a council flat if you have permission from the housing association. But you know, if they don't, I don't want to put them in trouble by showing you the photos. So yeah, just so you know, it doesn't have to be council, you know, because in the 80s, under Maggie Thatcher's, you know, you had the right to buy. So some flats used to be council flats, and today they are private. But if I see a flat that I suspect might be council, I'm not going to show you the photos because I do not want to put anyone in trouble. Yes, the window tax was mad, absolutely, Janie. And let me show you another one. So it's just down there behind the tree. It's a lovely building. I don't know what it used to be. I know it's been redone. It probably was some kind of a warehouse before. We are quite close to to Brick Lane and the brewery that was here, so it could have been linked to the brewery. Anyway, in this building there, just behind the tree, there's another flat share. So how much would you pay monthly? It's quite nice inside. Let me show you the images. Where are they? There we go. So the bedroom is a bit boring, but the flat looks quite cool. You live with a stranger, and that stranger is your landlord. I personally would not like to share a flat with the landlord because you probably would never feel like it's your home, you know. So how much would you pay monthly for a bedroom here sharing with a stranger? Nice sofa, yeah, it does look like nice and bright. It looks like a cool place. I think they might have a garage. I think I might have seen. Hold on. 1,300, 1,200. Janie, you know what? You're spot on. Just gonna go because I was getting some funny looks. Yeah, exactly. 2,000. So 2,000 pounds. Can you imagine? Let me show you the answer. Where is it? Yeah, 2,000. 2,000 pounds for a bedroom to live with a stranger that happens to be your landlord. This is mad. This is. I mean, it is the prices because the rent, you know, a two-bedroom flat to rent here is about 3,000 or 4,000. But this is insane. You know, you can have a full flat. I suppose, you know, if you don't care, if you don't mind sharing, if you're often out anyway, and if you work in the city, because you can literally walk, you know, if you work in Liverpool Street or anything like that, you can walk to work. I suppose you'll save money on transport as well. But you could get a full flat for 2,000. Well, a one bedroom that will not be as nice, but yeah, it's crazy. That's the prices now. How do I live there? Well, Linda, I live in a former nursing home. I have 48 flatmates, and I have a special deal. So the thing is, I pay a little bit less. Well, I still pay 700, but the thing is, I can be kicked out in 28 days, and that had it happened last year. Then I came back. Long story, but yeah, that allows me to have to pay a little bit less than most people in my area, but it's still quite a lot. I live into one room. I've got my own toilet, which is amazing, not to have to share the toilets and the toilet paper with 48 people, but I have to share the kitchen, the shower, yeah. Anyway, from now you'll start seeing a lot of street art. It does not mean that it is legal. Shoreditch has become the mecca for street art, but it doesn't mean that you're allowed to do so. It depends on the owner of the wall. This one is quite interesting. It looks like Henry VIII, just there in the middle, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understand the message. Oh, we've got Charles and Camilla down there as well. So yeah, we've got some interesting art. So Shoreditch, we believe the term comes from it's not street art, it's just graffiti. Well, yeah, it depends how you see things. There's two different houses in street art. You've got the murals and you've got graffiti. But graffiti, some people take it very seriously. Like what you see here is a lot of graffiti writing. And we have a weird version of, well, what looks like the Last Supper here. One of them has a dagger in his hand. Interesting. Anyway, Shoreditch, we believe it's actually from a sewer ditch, because there was a little ditch here where they drop all the sewer that would go down to the river that would then link to the Thames. There's a bit of an urban myth that there was a lady called Jane Shore. She was like a courtesan, a high-class prostitute, and she was the mistress of, I think it's Edward III, and they said she was found dead in a ditch here, and that's how we got the name. But as far as I know, this is not true. There are some references of Shoreditch before Jane Shore. So it's probably named after a sewer ditch. If the property developers knew that. So that's Shoreditch High Street Station. And to get back to the taxes, so we had the window tax, we had the wallpaper tax, and we had the hat tax. Because if you had many hats, that meant that you were quite wealthy. You know, poor people, they'll have only one. If you had a big collection of hats, you probably were quite wealthy. So they introduced a tax on hats, and the hatters had to pay it. And in London, it was actually much more expensive to become a hatter than it would be in the countryside. To get the license, you'd have to pay £2 here. And we also had a wig tax. Well, not really for the wigs, but for the powder that they put on their wigs. What happened is that Louis XIV, as a young man, he started to lose his hair at the age of 17. So he's the one that started wearing wigs. He started the fashion, and we've got those love locks here, but there's no river. Usually you put your initials on a lock, you put your love in a lock, and you drop the key in the river. But there's no river here. I don't know where they dropped the key. Anyway, so yeah, they started, so the fashion came from Paris, but then eventually it came back to London. Well, it came to London a few years later with Charles II. Those wigs, though, they were made with horse hair or sheep hair, and they would stink. They were disgusting. They were hardly ever washed. So they had to have those powder that were perfumed with lavender and stuff to make them smell good. So that's how they were powdered wig, and that was the powder that was taxed. And when they introduced the tax, actually, slowly the fashion of the wigs started to go down, because people don't want to pay taxes. You know, people do anything for tax evasion. So they stopped paying for those wigs. We are now on a street that is called Chance Street. And because we are in a Monopoly tour, and clearly I make up the rules, I've decided to pick up a chance. Let me see. No, it's not this. I've not read it. Well, I did select between 3 and I've read the 3, but I don't know which one I've picked. So I've picked up a chance on the Monopoly board. Let's see what it says. Oops. Go back 3 space. So I'll keep that for later. Tonight I'm gonna roll the dice at home again on the board, and if so I'll go back 3 space basically. So yeah, I'll keep that for later. See, chance straight. This is quite. It's a lovely area today. It used to have a bad rep. Today it's fairly safe, but you still have to be careful. Yesterday I was right here. I came to check the properties, and there's a young man that I was just minding my own business, looking at my phone. There's a young man that had approached a lady. I don't know what he told her, but she said no and ran away. And he came to me. He was wearing a high vis, like some kind of worker, but young, fit, with running shoes, Nike shoes. And he said to me, "Oh, this is my van. My phone has been stolen. Can I use your phone to call my employer?" And you know, well, I wanted to help, so obviously I said yes and unlocked my phone and gave him my phone. And then I was just paranoid. I was like, you know what? If that guy runs with my phone, not only would he have my phone, but I've unlocked it. And the guy is young, fit, with running shoes. There's no way I would catch him. And he's talking to his employer, but he keeps, I think he was a bit nervous, so he keeps moving and kind of moving away a few meters from me. So I keep like following him around. And eventually, I even imagined that the boss was an accomplice, you know, and then he hung up with the company. Then he wanted to call the police. And then when he rang the police, he literally did just a couple of digits, so I could see he really called the emergency services. And finally, I relaxed. But yeah, the poor chap, he was doing a delivery. He had left his phone in the vehicle for like 2 minutes. Boom, someone came in. And you know, we rely on technology so much. Not only had he lost his phone, but he could not finish his shift at work because he didn't know where to go for his next delivery. Then he called the police, so he didn't know his family number or anything. The police officers actually ran me this morning, but I couldn't say anything because I didn't know the guy. Anyway, so lovely area, but you've got to be careful, you know, like everywhere else. And let me show you a little bit more street art. Yeah, it's bad, and I actually felt really guilty to think that I imagine that he could be a thief, you know. But yeah, look at that. That's quite interesting as well. Mickey Mouse is really very well done. And let me show you some Camille Walala. There she is. So you might remember Camille Walala. We mentioned her in some of my tours before. She's a French artist, the French Londoners, and it's always very, very colorful what she does. Very geometric, you know, very minimalist. And yeah. And we should have a property right here. So in terms of taxes, we also had the brick tax, because we're quite close to Brick Lane, where we used to make bricks. We had the perfume tax as well, so they would tax any item really. Right, up there we have a flat. Let me show you the photos. Hi there. So how much would you pay for a flat share? This is actually short term. It's gonna be interesting. I cannot find the photos. Where is it? I think that's the one. Yes. So again, 1 bedroom to live with a stranger, and that's short term. You cannot stay more than how many months? I don't remember. A few months. How much would you pay for a 1 bedroom to share with a stranger monthly? 1,900, a little less. A little less. Oh, Janie, yes, you're nearly there. I think it's 1,550. Let me show you the answer. Yeah, 1,500 on and oops, why is it not focusing? 1,540. So yeah, but it is the prices. There was another flat a bit further down the road there that was 3,000 for a 2-bedroom flat. So that's, you know, 1,500 each bedroom. It is the prices. Let me show you the cat. And let's go back to taxes. So as I mentioned, you had a tax to get dice. So that's why I got my dice with me today. Where is my dice? Did I lose my dice? I might have lost my dice. No, there it is. So you had a tax to buy those dice, would you believe? I suppose it's because if you could play, you could gamble, you could play money, you had money. So, you know, and let me show you an example of those dices. I've got some Georgian dice here. Where is it? There you go. So those are Georgian dice. If you look, you might be able to see on some of them a little crown on GR. So this is Georgius Rex. So those are stamped because whoever produced them did pay the dice, it was called the dice duty. So yeah, very interesting. I think we had a lot of interesting taxes in history, but the UK has most of them. There was one in Russia, you had a tax on beard in Russia, but otherwise I think we've got the record of the most interesting taxes. And there's one tax that we've not mentioned yet. It is gin. By the way, this is the oldest council estate in London. I'll take you to the center because it's rather beautiful. It's called Arnold Circus. But we had a product that was not taxed. It was gin. What happened with gin is that it came to the UK with William III, you know, William of Orange from the Netherlands. He was a strong Protestant and he basically banned every import from France. So bye-bye French brandy, bye-bye French wine, hello gin, juniper. People fell in love with gin. They even called it Mother Juniper, like some kind of an idol. And everyone could brew the gin at home. You could brew it in your bathtub and sell it on the streets. And we ended up having a real issue with especially poor people, especially poor ladies, being completely addicted to gin. They were drinking gin by the pint. It's hard to tell how strong it was. We still have not been able to establish that. But yeah, they were drinking a lot. You might know the famous artist William Hogarth with Gin Lane on Beer Alley. Beer was meant to be a respectable drink when gin was, you know, the drink of the poor. And at the beginning of the 1700s, they started to want to regulate the gin trade. They put a tax on gin. Well, they called it juniper at the time. So juniper was the main ingredient, the berry. So some people started to remove the berry and just sell the liquor to again try tax evasion. And then they had, so they tried to force people to have a license. There was the Gin Act of 1729, then 1736. Then people were extremely unhappy. They were rioting on the streets. They were shouting, "No gin, no king." And not only did they place a license, a very expensive license, the equivalent of £10,000 today, on anyone that wanted to sell gin, but they also hired those basically snitches, people that would go along the street and literally tell the authorities about anyone illegally selling gin. And this is how the first vending machine was invented. There's a chap called Captain Bradstreet. He realized that the people were not allowed to enter a building, those people kind of spying on you. So what he did, he created a cat. Let me show you the cat. It's not the original one, it's a replica. That's at the Beefeater Distillery in Oval. So he created a wooden cat with a hole in his mouth and a little pipe that's like his tail. And what you'd do, so it was in a building that actually belonged to a lawyer. You'd go to see the cat and you'd go, puss, puss. And you'd have to wait for someone to say, meow. It was not really a machine, and the guy was behind the cat. So he'd go, meow. And then you'd go, puss, puss. I'd like two penny worth of gin. And then you'd put your cup or your mouth, some people would go with their mouth open, to get your dose of gin. So for 2 penny, that's probably like a little shot. Why is it not clear? There we go. So that's quite cool. And it's actually the first vending machine. Although it's not really a machine, you know, it is operated by humans, but yeah, quite interesting. And then people started to make replicas as well of different machines. This way, no one could snitch on you. No one could go to the authority and said so and so is selling gin, because they didn't know who was behind the meow. So yeah, that's quite cool. And eventually, I mean, so many people were persecuted for illegally selling gin. Finally, the trade ended up being more regulated, and then they opened those gin palaces and all that. Anyway, we are now in the center of Arnold Circus, and all those beautiful buildings. So what happened is that we did not quite yet have social housing. Well, we had some philanthropists. We've spoken in my tours before about George Peabody, an American gentleman that gifted millions to help the poor and create some social housing. Then we had the Guinness Trust, the great grandson of the guy from the Guinness brewery in Dublin. He also did some kind of social housing, but those were independent philanthropists. This was the first one that was run. I'm showing you the bin because when I was here earlier, the police, they spotted something in that bin. I don't know what, but there was something dodgy in the bin, and they were all running around the bin earlier and stopping people. I don't know what it was. I don't think I want to know what it was. Anyway, so it's called Arnold Circus. Let me show you the name, after Sir Arthur Arnold. He worked for the London County Council, that had been newly created, the London County Council. The very sad thing is this area used to be a proper slum. At the time of, in late Victorian times, we had this gentleman that created the poverty map. His name was Thomas Booth. So he mapped London with different color codes, from the rich to the middle class, to the poor, the extremely poor, the criminal almost poor. If you were dark blue or black, it was a terribly poor area. And this area was very, very dark blue. To give you an idea, in one house here, you'd have up to 50 people living cramped together in terrible conditions. And they evicted, in the 1890s, they evicted over 1,000 people here to build this lovely social estate. But the thing is, when finally it was ready, I think it's 1896 that they opened it, the people that have been evicted, they had to move in the streets away, other slummy streets. They could not actually afford this. Although it was social housing, the price would have been 4 times the original price. So it was a success in a way that still today about 1,500 people live here and work here. But it was never the poor that were evicted. They were not able to come back here. And it was apparently an amazing community. I've listened to interviews of people that used to live here. There were a lot of people from the Jewish community mixed with Christians, and there was no problem. You know, there were 2 schools. There's still 1 school today, but those guys were saying that there was no segregation or anything. You know, they knew it happened elsewhere, but here it was a big community. In between the buildings, the kids apparently, they called it the playgrounds, because there are those little alleys between the buildings, and they'll be like, oh, today I'm coming to your playground, or this afternoon you're coming to my playground. And so yeah, it's an amazing little oasis, really, right in the center of London. We're just a few minutes walk from Liverpool Street. There's a few accommodation to rent in here, but again, I've chosen not to show you exactly which one or to show you the photos because I don't know. You know, if they happen to be concealed flats that are subletted, I don't want to put anyone in trouble. But to give you an idea, a one bedroom here, you could be on the fifth floor with no lift because there's no lift in any of them. But that's about £2,000 a month. And back in the days, at the beginning of the century, you had a superintendent. So you'd have to behave. You had to clean your window, you had to clean the staircase. And the superintendent, actually, William Webb, he died on the job. Probably too many staircases, you know, he was going up and down and going to check on everyone. Yeah, it is a lot of stairs to climb, but it's the same in all those old social housing building. I have a friend that lives in a Peabody building in Whitechapel, and it's the same. It's on the 5th floor, no lift. So you don't, when you go to the shop, you don't want to forget the milk and have to go down, because it's well, I suppose it's good for your waist, but yeah. Anyway. This is gonna be the end of the tour. Let me show you my face again, and let me know if you have any questions for me. If not, thank you very much for coming today. Tonight I'm gonna go live at home. I'm gonna roll the dice again and see where I end up. And remember, I'll have to go back 3 space on the board. Wherever I end up, I'll go back 3 space. And if any of you left a little tip, thank you very much. It's really appreciated. With those tours, the only money I get at the moment, it is straight from your generosity. So thank you very much in advance if you are in a position to do so. And you've got the link. It should be pinned at the top of the chat. You can believe the property prices. Yes, they are quite high. Well, this is a fancy area. It's a Shoreditch is very hipsterish. You know, you've got all those bearded gentlemen or tattooed with vintage watch and eating avocados on toast, and you know, it is a trendy area, but yeah, very expensive. You know the area quite well, yeah. Yeah, I love Shoreditch myself, but I don't think I could afford to live here, really. Well, you can always find something. Actually, in those buildings, I have found some bedrooms that were $900 a month in a flat share, so you're probably sharing with like 4 or 5, but they did not have a living room. Or the living room was closed to do another bedroom. That happens quite a lot in London. The landlord, because that could actually be social housing being subletted, but the landlord often closes the living room to rent it as a bedroom, a large bedroom. So very often you spend most of your time into your bedroom, really. Oh, you used to live there in the 90s. Oh, cool. Do I have a YouTube membership? No, Terry, I don't. At the moment, I don't even have the option anyway, because I think you have to be monetized on YouTube to get that option. I'm not saying I will, but at the moment, the only option to support me is to drop me a tip with the tip link. So I've got to buy me a coffee or a PayPal. What is a YouTube membership? Well, I've not looked too much into the details, but it's a kind of a subscription, I believe, where you can have some content that's only available to your subscribers or members. It's not necessarily an avenue I'd like to go into. I think I prefer for you to tip me when I do a good job, or to tip me when you enjoy it, rather than having the pressure to come up with new content all the time, because people are subscribed, you know. So yeah. Oh, the channel, cool. Yeah, so you can pay. It's good. It's good that you can do as little as £1 a month. I didn't know what the minimum is. I will certainly look into it once I reach. I still need a few thousands of hours. Well, you need 4,000 hours to get all those options on YouTube. 4,000 hours of watch time. It should come soon, but I still have a few hundreds of hours to go. Oh, thank you, Linda. Cool. I don't see any more questions, so I'm gonna get going. Hopefully, I'll see some of you in a couple of hours. Just a quick one from home. I'm gonna roll the dice, and we'll see which Monopoly location I'll explore next week. Hopefully next week there'll be a proper location, because this location here is not on the Monopoly board. This was just to tell you about the tax and the window tax on those Georgian taxes. You are a member on... Oh, interesting, Terry. I'll have to take a look. I just assumed that it was some of the benefits you had when you had your monetization. Interesting. Anyway, have a good evening, a good morning, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And if I don't see you tonight, I might see you tomorrow. I'm redoing Crimes of Angel. So we're going to Angel to talk about some of the dark history, the dark stories, I should say, hidden behind those lovely little doors that you would probably never guess. So have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye. Oh, thank you, Julie.